Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second installment of Across the Ditch. I am one half of the absolutely fantastic cast that makes up this show, Joel Rasmussen from Southern Cross Combat. And as always, I am joined by the great man from Across the Ditch, the man from New Zealand, Mr. Paddy Baynes. Paddy, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. This is 2.5. No, we definitely don't have an unreleased episode that didn't work out.
There is an unreleased episode that didn't come out. You guys are getting 100% of the content. How are you, Paddy?
Yeah, good. It's been taking a bit of a break on content because I have a habit of burning myself out and then getting back into it again. But this keeps us consistent. I like this, and Squared Up Update kind of keeps me going.
The great Squared Up Update.
You like the fire underneath me, Joel, from Southern Cross Combat.
Well, of course, it's nothing if it's not, we're all lifting each other up here. Where have you been? You've been busy over the past couple days.
What do you mean, where have I been? Just on the corner trying to... What do you mean, though? I actually...
Where were you yesterday, Paddy? I was here. I hate you.
I'm genuinely forgetting what I did. I went out to put up with a friend.
I know your schedule better than
Are you talking about Grassroots?
I am talking about Grassroots.
That was 2 days ago.
Ah, sue me.
I want to ask the question again.
No. I don't want to know anymore.
Some local MMA over the weekend. I was at Shuriken Grassroots, a great local... About as local MMA shows go. So it's a gym that puts on a show in their gym. They like lift up all the mats, put seats down, and it's basically where all the other gyms come to showcase their fighters.
Excellent. So it's all Ammy?
Like amateur of the amateur sort of level. So not even on like amateurs for a big event yet.
How was the show? What were you doing at the show?
I was just there to kind of take notes on the new MMA fighters. Sometimes you see a couple come through who starch their opponents and very quickly move on to the amateur card of, say, Shuriken Fight Series. Like this guy, Adam Nairn, I saw his Shuriken Grassroots, and his next fight was on the amateur card of Shuriken Fight Series 20. So I was and it just helps me kind of get experience on writing as well, because I hope to eventually actually do write-ups on these events and just kind of post them locally on a website sort of thing. So it's cool taking notes, and then I go do some social media and all that sort of stuff.
Very cool, very cool. I noticed, what's that lovely jacket that's draped over your chair? Did we talk about that jacket? I don't think we talked about it last time.
Well, this isn't the 300 one.
Ah, well then I don't care about it.
Oh, okay. No, the 300 jacket's in the cupboard. That's my price, my pride and joy. I'm not having that just draped over a fucking chair.
That's in the that's in like a special zip-up case.
It's not quite that intense, but I have thought about it.
I am wearing a lovely Melbourne Victory number, a nice little victory kit. I'm not a full kit wanker, just the jersey's enough for me.
That's not the shirt you said you were wearing earlier.
Yeah, what did I tell you I was wearing?
You told you're wearing your favorite shirt after your favorite fighter.
Yes.
The bad guy himself.
I went to the gym in that, and so it got all little sweet.
Oh, you gym, bro?
Yeah, can't you tell?
Give us a flex. That's what Nat Law does.
Ziz pose.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Ziz.
He died before when you were primary school, didn't he?
If it was that late, maybe. Yeah, I will be at the show that we are discussing in this upcoming episode of Across the Ditch. I will be at the show, so I won't be watching Melbourne Victory become A-League champs. And I only really go to the soccer to throw flares, so that's fine that I'm missing it.
What's up throwing flares? I don't know your Gen Z slang.
It's not a Gen Z slang. You know a flare?
You're literally throwing flares.
You light a flare, and then you throw it onto the pitch, and then you rush the pitch, and then you punch a goalkeeper. That's the Melbourne Victory way of doing things.
I'm just glad that AFC is doing really well. Auckland's really gotten behind today. Like, it's a movement.
Well, not doing well enough to beat us.
I don't follow it. I haven't even been to a game.
We beat you in Auckland to make the grand final. This is a podcast not about soccer, because I couldn't tell you anything about soccer. This is a podcast about MMA fights, and this episode we're talking about Hex Fight Series 35 coming live from the Melbourne Pavilion on Saturday, May 31st. That's the end of this week that we're recording and you are watching it. Because if I get this out after Hex 35, it's worthless. And we'll also be looking at the Road to Hex card, which is the amateur show that happens afterwards. There's just a few names that we maybe want to discuss and have a little chat about. Much like our last episode, we gave some shout-outs to some of the Ammy boys. That sound good to you, Paddy?
Yep, sounds good. And I have a lot of Ammy boys to shout out to.
Excellent. So we'll start with the pro card. And we will start with...
Yes, on this first pro fight of the card, we got city kickboxing boy Keoni. His full name is... Keoni Terorotua. He's a Tahitian. Quite a few... City kickboxing's got quite a close relationship with Tahiti, it seems. They've got a heavyweight who comes from there, who I've seen in a documentary, I think, about when MMA was made legal. Because it's only recently been, like in the last couple of years, been made legal in Tahiti. But Keoni is one of the Tahitian fighters coming out of city kickboxing alongside Tamahikuli. He only kind of recently went pro in 2023 on XFC, RIP XFC, against another person we know, old Cooper Royal, old Rush. He lost his debut, but then he had a second fight against Rory O'Keefe, who is one of my early interviews. And I spoke to Rory before his pro debut, and his pro debut went the same as Keoni's. So Keoni beat him and actually popped his shoulder. It was a pretty dominating win, which is hard to watch when you're like the guy that he's beating up. So yeah, Keoni's having his third pro fight, opening up the pro card on Hex, and he's obviously fighting at flyweight, the lightest weight class. He's got a few training partners at City Kickboxing these days with Kai, Tama, and then Aaron's obviously now trying to fight at flyweight. He's successfully fighting at flyweight for the road to UFC. So this should be a good fight. I'm really excited to see Keoni back in the cage, because at this rate he's only been fighting once a year. He fought April last year. He was supposed to, in fairness, he was supposed to fight in September last year as well, but that fight fell through on Eternal. So he's back in the cage. All fingers crossed that nothing happens and no one gets injured. What can you tell us about Kouki?
Well, before we talk about Kouki, I wanted to talk about... Where did you say that Keoni is from?
Tahiti.
I wanted to talk about Tahiti a little bit. It's cool because, not that you asked what I've been doing recently, thanks, but I was at the PFL press conference where... I don't know how to pronounce his first name, but his last name is pronounced Dudez. A man I know well from here.
Yeah, Rahiki.
Rahiki Dudez got signed, a guy who's also repping Tahiti. It's cool to see... And as you mentioned before, there's a guy also out of CKB who's also repping Tahiti. It's cool to see that development happen. It's always awesome when you see guys break ground and become the first, from my understanding, the first guys to go out and do it. Maybe there's a whole legacy that I'm just not aware of. But that is very cool. It's very cool to see Keoni repping Tahiti so proudly. But his opponent is Kouki Takayama. Excuse me, I cannot... That was difficult for me. Out of Japan. He is 1-0 as a pro out of Japan. That win coming by way of first round ground and pound. Aishitsuna MMA gym in Japan is where he is training. He lost his first 3 amateur fights. Then he won his last 2 and then won his pro debut. So he's riding the wave of a 3-fight win streak, one of which being pro... And a stoppage at pro. And a stoppage at pro can be... to have, an amateur career that can be ups and downs. To then go pro and get a stoppage win, that obviously brings a lot of confidence in and a lot of... what's the word I'm looking for? Momentum into the fight. But as he is a guy who's not out of the scene of Australia and New Zealand, I'm not overly familiar with him. But that's what I could scrounge up. Moving on to the next fight of the pro card, we've got Jonathan Kuhn taking on Jett Fisher in a featherweight bout. Jonathan Kuhn is a French firefighter. He's been...
What a name.
I know, right? And he's been fighting fires out in the Outback. I talked about it with him a little bit after his last fight. I grabbed a post-fight with him. His last victory was on beatdown over Miller. It was his first victory over his pro career. Prior to that, he was 0-2. He's now 1-2. But yeah, he's been out fighting fires. So I'm glad to see him back in the MMA cage and doing well. And as I said, he's got his first victory at pro, which I'm very happy for him. And I'm also glad that I don't know which is scarier, fighting fires or fighting professionally in an MMA cage, but I wouldn't particularly want to do either. Which would you rather?
Oh, that is a tough one. Probably the cage, because fights get stopped where fire will just keep coming if you're fucking losing that fight.
Yeah, fire isn't like doctor stoppage.
And it's easier to heal from a split face from a punch than burn marks. I'd rather have scars than burns.
Yeah, that's fair. Scars I feel are cooler to explain than burns.
You wonder how I got these scars?
Oh, dude, the jokester.
Jokester, don't do that.
Why? That's his name. He's
That's
fighting out of Fusion Fight and Fitness in Tully, which is in North Queensland. And if you look at his amateur career, I was taking a quick gaze at the Ammy career. Holds a victory over Alistair Valdez in Ammy, who is a featherweight gentleman who is now turned pro, and he's doing very well. So that's interesting to see that they cross paths. Now, looking at his opponent across the cage will stand Jett Fisher, Melbourne boy Jett Fisher, the Wolverine is his nickname. When he walks out, he'll go like ah, and he'll like do the claws out, which is very cool.
Did the claws actually come out?
No, I think he keeps. I think that he wouldn't be allowed to fight if the claws actually came out, so he keeps them tucked away, which is very nice of him. It's nice that he doesn't.
He's making the most of every advantage he can have.
I know. Well, he's already got bones made of adamantium.
True, that's a good advantage.
Exactly, it's a very good advantage. He's fighting out of Primal MMA and Fitness. His dad is his coach. Joel Fisher is the coach of him and his brother Cage, who we'll talk about in the amateur section. His brother is still an Ammy.
Did you just say his brother's name's Cage?
Yes, Cage and Jett Fisher.
And he also fights MMA?
Yes, he does fight MMA in a cage.
Cage is in the cage?
Yes, Cage is in the cage, but we'll talk about Cage later. Jett had an extensive amateur career. He was 9-3, winning many amateur titles. He's 1-1 as a pro, with his last fight being a victory over Dane Edge. I'm glad to see... sorry, before I do that. He's got a really good, smart style. He uses his grappling incredibly effectively. Heaps of subs throughout his amateur career, and he uses his grappling very well. He's used it very well throughout his pro career thus far. And yeah, as I mentioned before, Cage Fisher is his brother, but we'll talk about Cage later when we talk about the Ammys. But I'm a big fan of Jett. I like the guy. I really like, seeing him make this jump to pro. And although his pro debut wasn't what he was hoping, obviously you hope to build on the momentum from Ammy, go over to pro, and keep it going. Unfortunately, he came away with a loss in his pro debut, rather. To see him go through that and fight through that adversity, because he was so dominant throughout his amateurs. So when he is faced with that adversity, he doesn't quit, he doesn't give up. And I think this will be a really good fight. Two really good grappling styles. Jonathan used a lot of his wrestling in his last fight to get that win over Caleb Miller, a lot of cage grappling. I am very much looking forward to seeing that fight.
And his former opponent, Dane Edge, is actually fighting on Shuriken Fight Series the following week.
And Dane Edge is a extensive kickboxer. Yes.
So yeah, he's quite the kickboxing record. His kickboxing success doesn't reflect on his MMA record. His MMA record is unfortunately littered with losses. But yeah, he might be able to turn it around on this next fight. I think he just loves fighting so much that he just jumps between codes, and that probably maybe is to his detriment, because it takes away from certain skill sets where obviously striking is across all of them. So your benefit is to focus on striking, and then he probably comes into these MMA matches, and then I'm unsure what his grappling is like, but I imagine it's probably his weak point.
Moving on up the card, the next fight is Patrick Hill versus Jake Piper at bantamweight. Paddy Hill, bro, Hillamania.
And Piper, I barely know her. That hasn't been prepared for hours.
No, not at all. And Jake's never heard that ever. Patrick Hill, first off, rocking the Hillamania t-shirts. I'm always a fan of a good fight t-shirt. You're wearing a very nice one at the moment, just a scratch.
Thank you, yeah. It was not just a scratch.
But I'm a big fan of Paddy Hill. He's repping Progression MMA in Canberra. Great, sneaky good team coming out of Progression at the moment. I'm really impressed with what's coming out of Progression at the moment. What Duke Didier is doing out there. Paddy is, I'm going to call him Paddy because he and I are like that. I'm assuming
Okay.
he's okay with me calling him Paddy, and I'll swap to Patrick.
I thought I was the only Paddy in your life, so that's
Okay, never
quite
mind.
upsetting that you're using such familiarity with him.
All right, sorry, Patrick Hill. Patrick Hill.
He also fought. Sorry to interrupt. He also fought on Shuriken the first Stealth Fight League, which is cool.
Shuriken the first stealth.
Shut up. There's too many fight nights in New Zealand that start with the letter S. There's
Dude,
3.
the S is
So
big in New Zealand.
yeah, we love the S.
Patrick Hill, he's 3-0 as a pro. He was 6-1 as an amateur, and that one being his debut. So Patrick Hill has not tasted defeat since his amateur debut. So that's heaps of momentum coming in. He's got a great style, good pressure style. His last victory being a first round submission over Moses Deng at Dynasty of Combat 1 back in Canberra. So he's got that opportunity to fight. Dude, this guy travels. I spoke to him after his pro debut at Demolition Fight Series. He got a first round sub over Mal McDowell. I talked to him after that. So that was he but he was fighting in Melbourne for that. So he moved to Melbourne to fight, not literally moved, but travelled. Then he went over across the ditch to fight in SFL 1, and then he gets the fight at home, and now he's back in Melbourne. The guy is a traveller. Paddy is on the move. He's fighting Jake Piper, who, as I mentioned before, Patrick Hill, great t-shirt, Hillamania. Jake Piper's new shirt, quit his job for this shit. Banger for 2 great fight t-shirts going against each other right now. Jake Piper, he's out of Ignite MMA in Caloundra, Queensland, under the great Ryan Dunstan, training with guys like Jean Alexander, who we'll kind of bring up in a little bit, and Sean Gauchi, newly signed PFL Sean Gauchi, Lonnie Filimohala sometimes, David Martinez. Like, there's a lot of good guys coming out of both of these gyms, but we're talking about Ignite at the moment. He was 9-2 at Ammy. He held he held a few amateur titles, and he held amateur wins over Jett Fisher, who we just talked about before, and John Aiello, who we mentioned in the last Across the Ditch episode. It's funny when you go and see that, and you look at the amateurs, and you see where everyone is now, and you're like, wow, everyone's linked. That's something that's very fun.
I'm looking. He's also he fought someone else who's on this card, old Brodie Mayocchi.
Did he fight Brodie as well?
Yeah, he has a loss to Brodie and Beast Championship 4.
Dude, fought Brodie in amateurs as well, and then he fought Kasib in his pro debut. Piper is 0-1 as a pro. On short notice, he fought Kasib Murdoch. After he tried to turn pro, Jake tried to turn pro twice, and twice the fight fell through. I talked to him about it before the Kasib fight, and he was like, I felt a little bit cursed.
Yeah, it'd be hard to follow through after that, eh? You'd be like, oh, is this a sign that it's not meant to be?
Yes, but he went upper weight class because it was short notice. Kasib stepped in on short notice. But so Jake's... Yeah, what's up?
So I was gonna say, he doesn't have a good record about other people who are on this card with him.
But you know Jake's coming in to be hungry. He's coming in to fight, bro. He's coming in to win fights. As anyone on this card is. If anyone's coming in to lose, I'd be surprised. But
you could say he's coming in to Piper.
Dude, he's coming in to lay down the pipe. He's I don't know what he quit he says quit his job for this shit. I don't remember what he did. Something on roofs. He posts a lot of photos being on roofs. I'm not going to say roof plumber. It might just be roofing. I think he just roofs.
Roof plumber. That's not a job.
That is a job because I know 2 people who are roof plumbers.
Do you mean like do spouting or something?
I don't know what they do. They just tell me they do roof plumbing, and I go, please stop talking to me. I'm trying to do jiu-jitsu. Please stop making small talk. But you know he's coming. Especially, I'm keen to see Jake make the walk at pro at his weight class. That's something I'm very much looking forward to. And there's some fights on this card that maybe you look at and you go, interesting. This is one that I think you look at and you go, interesting, in that Patrick Hill is 3-0, Jake Piper is 0-1. But based on the skills of both guys, I don't think this is... Like, if you looked at a different card and you saw 3-0 versus 0-1, you might be like, ooh, mismatch. I really don't think this is a mismatch. I think both these guys are very, very good. They kind of represent that next level of bantamweight who's coming through. And I think depending on how a fight later goes, how the title fight goes, and how this fight goes, I could see the winner of this fight potentially being next in line for the Hex title, or being on a path where they're 1 or 2 fights away from it. Depending, yet again, that's a lot of moving parts. Depending on the outcome of this fight and the title fight, kind of, you can have some free. We can do some fantasy booking afterwards.
Start a fantasy league.
Yeah, fantasy MMA league.
Yeah.
Tapology. Everyone's betting on Tapology. But that's a very good fight. I'm very much looking forward to that fight.
Speaking of good fights, though, this next one we've got,
dude, this is going to be
both these fighters are undefeated. This is I'll let you take it from the top because I believe you know the first fighter.
Yes, so we're talking about Artemios Trepca versus Brodie Mayocchi at lightweight, and I'll fill you guys in a little bit about Artemios. Artemios Trepca, he's fighting at a Mat Masters in Melbourne alongside his brother Nikos. He's a high level grappler, high level grappling. Undefeated as an amateur and a pro. 8-0 at Ammy, 2-0 at pro at the moment. He holds Ammy wins over Dylan Lahari and Stephen Wong, 2 very high-level grapplers. Both of his pro wins are submissions. Artemios, yet again, I talked about it before with the last fight with the bantamweights, but Artie and his opponent Brodie, who I'll let you talk about in a moment. These are this next level of lightweight guy. There's a lot of new guys coming through. And God is the talent pool high. And God is the bar high. It's cool. I'm glad to see Artie get tested against a guy who the scene's a bit more familiar with. His 2 wins, if I'm not mistaken, prior to this at pro, are 2 guys who the scene doesn't really know about. They're not fighting in Australia. Oh, that's a lie. One of them is a New Zealand guy. So
yeah, he's from Oliver South.
Yes, so we do know him. I apologize to that gentleman. But the second guy was I believe that's the Filipino flag. It is a Filipino guy, so not super known well in the scene. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing. Although that guy that he last beat did have 10 pro fights, so he's fighting guys with more experience than him. I'm really looking forward to Artie fighting a guy who we already do know about. And talking about a guy we already know about, Paddy, who is this man?
In the one and only half of the Mayocchi brothers, Brodie Mayocchi. What an absolute weapon these brothers are, eh? Speaking of someone who trains with their brother. Now you've watched Relentless, eh?
Yes, sir.
I keep meaning to watch it, and so my understanding is this is how the Mayocchis found their way to City Kickboxing. For those who don't know, Relentless was a reality TV show here in New Zealand, where City Kickboxing brought in a bunch of amateur fighters, or were they pro? They made their anyway. They brought in a bunch of fighters, and they got one of them got to win a scholarship at City Kickboxing, where the membership's paid, the accommodations paid, potentially the food's all covered for that year as well. And Brodie was the first one because who was in it to begin with? Well, it was only one of them. It was either Kyle or Brodie.
I believe Brodie was in it originally.
And then for some reason, Kyle, his brother, ends up in the show as well. I don't know if someone dropped out or not.
The mystery card. They brought in Kyle as well.
Yeah. And Brodie won it, I believe, didn't he? Or did Kyle win it? One of the Mayocchi brothers won it. It's funny that I'm making trouble getting who's who, because I've actually done this to them in person, where I was at a country concert, Kane Brown, and I saw Brodie there, and I went up and introduced myself and called him Kyle, and that was so embarrassing.
Brodie won the scholarship.
So he's an absolute weapon. He's 1-0, undefeated. So yep, he is. So I was still on Artemios's 1-0, undefeated, complete tear of an amateur record as well. Fought people like we've previously spoken, like Jake Piper. He was meant to fight Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator fame.
I didn't know he got into MMA.
Well, that's why he was scared of this predator, because Brodie is definitely a fucking predator. And the fact that both these boys have both finishes with a lot of like all of Brodie's finishes have all come by grappling as well. So I'm actually very, very excited for this fight.
Brodie being a predator was said by Paddy Baynes.
Don't hit me with that, Joe
That was
Rogan.
said by Joe Rogan. But that'll be a fight. I wrote it down here. This will be a great fight, and this will be a fight that you look back on and you go, "Oh my god, they fought each other." Like this will be, no matter what the outcome of this fight is, this will be a fight where we look back on in like a few years' time, like 3 or 4 years' time, and we're like, "What? Those two?" This will be, in my opinion, I think this will end up being like Jamie Malarkey fighting Alexander Volkanovski. Where you're like, wow, what? Those guys fought on the regionals? And especially so early on in their career. I think that's a banger fight. Moving next up the card, Gukhwan Moon will take on Trent Girdham in a bantamweight matchup. This is another guy who isn't familiar to the scene. Gukhwan Moon fighting, he's 2-4-1. He's fighting out of South Korea. He is at a gym called the First Gym in South Korea. I don't know if it was the first gym in South Korea, but it's called First Gym, and it is in South Korea. He is a black belt in a BJJ, and he holds the All Fighting Championship Bantamweight title, which he won via head and arm choke. He was 0-3 heading into a title fight, and then he won the fight via head and arm choke. That's pretty cool. He's taking on Trent Girdham, who is a bit of a, I use the phrase, he's a bit of a nomad in the MMA scene. He travels and fights. He travels and fights and trains. When he's not traveling, he is out of freestyle. That's where he is at the moment. I saw him stop in the other day, I'm pretty sure. That's who he reps when he's in Australia and when he's training here. But quick story about Trent Girdham. It's funny how, what I said before about like, you look at people's early career and you see who fought who at the amateurs. It's also so interesting to me to see who used to train with who and then where everyone ended up. Trent Girdham is a good mates with Raja Shippen out of Absolute MMA. Raja Shippen fought somewhat recently, on a show that didn't have a live broadcast. They were recording it to release it later. And I was there for media. And Trent was like, "Can you FaceTime me during Raj's fight, please? So I can watch Raja fight." So I FaceTimed Trent in the crowd at Rogue while he was on the back of a moped in Thailand. And he was like, "Turn the phone sideways." So I turned the phone sideways so we could watch the fight. Fortunately for my arms, the fight only lasted like a round. And so Raja got the quick finish. But that was funny. He was like driving on a moped on the back seat while he was watching the fight, and then he went down to have dinner. And then he was like showing me what he was ordering on the menu. He was like, "I'm going to get this." And I was like, "Thank you, Trent. Very cool."
That's a real friend, eh?
For real. So I love that story. I always think that's very funny, and it's good. It'll be good to see Trent again. He is 15-6-1. He's fought on Hex. He fought on ACB back in the day, which was like a huge show in Oz. He's fought on Ryzen before. He's fought on UNE Warriors. This is a man who has traveled the world to fight, and that's the other thing about Trent. It's hard to track his career because it'll just be like he'll just post on Instagram where he's like, "Fighting." Oh, okay.
Yeah, that record, well, not that record, but that just number of pro fights, 22 pro fights at 27 years old. That's young.
Yeah.
That's young for a fighter, and that's a crazy. Like, even there's people older than him in the UFC who've had less pro fights than that.
Yeah.
But it's an impressive record, and what's even more impressive are those eyebrow slits he's got going on.
Dude.
In this photo here on Tapology.
Dude.
Was that his actual look?
Last time I saw him, he had that. Yes. I don't know if he was blonde the last time I saw him.
You know how you like to do, like for Quillen, you did the moustache?
Yeah, I should do the eyebrows.
You should do the eyebrows.
Dude,
Yeah.
I should.
I reckon you can pull it off too.
If when I show up to Hex with no eyebrows because I fucked it up and I have to shave the whole thing, you'll know what happened. But I think I was watching a video about Trent. I think he's only, I'm going to use the phrase only here, only a purple belt. He is very good grappling. I think he'll do very well in the grappling, but he's also a good striker. Moving up the card, we have Shunichi Shimizu taking on Justin Van Heerden at featherweight. What's funny, Paddy?
not funny. It's just incredible. Like this guy's the amount of fights he's had.
Yes.
Shimizu's had like over 70 pro fights.
Shimizu has a professional mixed martial arts record of 38, 28, and 14. And he's been fighting since 2005.
You could say he's an artist because boy does he love to draw.
Yes.
14 draws!
14 draws. It's rare to see a draw ever. And this guy had 14. I think it's an insight into how the game has changed in 20 years. Since 2005 to now, you never see draws anymore. Draws are so rare to get scored.
But boy, like you can kind of understand 70 fights if he started young and he's 40 years old now. This is talking about Shimizu. So yeah, it's kind of he must be pushing to the end of his career, I would say. Potentially one of those ones who was done and he got brought back, but he did have a fight like last month, so that's still pretty active. And then before that, it was in January. He's fought twice this year already, and we're not even in the 6th month of the year. Yep. So this guy is still loving it.
He shows up to fight. He previously fought in the UFC, and he previously fought on Hex in 2019, where he defeated Ashkan Mokhtarian in Ashkan's return from his stint in the UFC. So Shimizu is entering this fight with a 100% record in Hex.
What an advantage.
I know.
Wow,
right?
and looking at when he fought in the UFC too, this was over 10 years ago. He has been around.
It's been
It was Conor McGregor era when Conor McGregor was hitting, and Ronda Rousey.
Bro,
2014.
We're still in the Conor era. He's coming back. He's coming back, I promise.
He's got to finish his fight with Chandler.
Yeah, exactly. And he will be standing across from Justin Van Heerden, who that's a staple of the scene. If you've watched any of my interviews before, you've probably watched the Justin Van Heerden one. He is returning to featherweight after a stint at lightweight. He's the former Eternal Featherweight champ that he vacated to come over to Hex, so he never lost his belt. He trains out of freestyle MMA alongside gentlemen like Alexander Volkanovski, who is in the UFC, if you've maybe heard of him.
Maybe. Loosely.
Yes. Colby Thickness. Well, Volkanovski...
Heard of him.
Who just got the keys to the city. So maybe that's where
keys to Wollongong, right?
Yeah, the keys to Wollongong.
Yeah.
Colby Thickness, who is also in the UFC. Sebastian Soleil, who is on the road to UFC. Seb won the title after Justin vacated it. Also, case of Murdoch, who's a guy we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Justin, I liked him at lightweight. I did like Justin at lightweight, but it's cool to see him return to featherweight if that's what he wants to do. I think I would have liked to see him at lightweight for a bit longer. I think there's some really cool fights for him to have at lightweight. He's a very, very, very good featherweight. So it's cool to see him come back to it, because I'm sure we're going to get a classic Justin Van Heerden featherweight performance, very high level. But I liked him at lightweight as well. But it's cool to see Justin back in there, and I don't know what it is, but I've heard he's in for a busy year. I've heard he's already looking at fights to have after this. But that's something I can talk to him about in the post-fight.
That's interesting. You don't really hear about fighters. They're trying to focus on the fighter in front of them and not think into the future, because it can you can get lost in there, and it kind of can.
You can get lost in
fuck
the sauce.
Up a little bit. Yeah, lost in the sauce.
Lost in the sauce. Justin Van Heerden, lost in the sauce.
But his most recent fight, the Sauce King, was against the headliner as well, who's we'll be talking about very shortly, Kieran Joblin. Shout out case of Murdoch, Kiwi boy, trader. No.
Is that the feeling of Kasib in the homeland?
Nah. I mean, to be honest, I actually don't know how well he is known in New Zealand. Mainly because, like, you take a look at his record, which I can pull up right now. I did have it up before. He hasn't really fought on the New Zealand regional scene, is my main observation. So see here, no fights on the regional New Zealand scene. He's a lot of IMAF fights. That's where he's had most of his career. Most of his, I should say, his amateur career. And then on XFC as well. And then most of his pro fights have been in Kangaroos in Thailand?
Yes.
Or Bali?
Bali.
Thailand, yeah. Bali. So that's kind of why he's not too particularly well known in New Zealand. And then Hex 32, where he had a win over Jack Piper.
Who?
Jake Piper, sorry. Can't read. My literacy
Piper?
is coming out.
Don't
I
even
barely
Jake
know
her.
her. Jake the Pipe. So yeah, Kasib, I would say I'm now adopting him as an honorary Kiwi,
Was that the...
even though he is a Kiwi. Kasib, like Nat Law, fucking traitor. No,
Yes.
we joke. Everyone's leaving New Zealand to go to Australia at the moment, so no hate there.
Hey, heaps of people are coming back over. There's a couple of Aussies fighting out in New Zealand. Brodie, one of them. Cam Rouston, a second. Don't ask me
Cam
who a
Rouse has
third.
been here a while though.
So, does it matter how long?
Yes, to me, for argument's sake.
Oh,
But
okay.
moving on to Kasib, unless you wanted to add anything on Kasib.
Kasib, he's 4-0 as a pro, 10-0 as an amateur, fought in IMAF, as you mentioned. 3 of the 4, as you mentioned, are out at Canggu over in Bali. Hard to tell the level. Hard to tell the level because we don't know who they are. And so it's hard to be like, wow, I wonder how good that person was. Hard to tell the level. His win over Jake Piper is a good W. Jake is very good. That was upper weight class, but both guys were upper weight class. They're both bantamweights fighting at featherweight, so it was fine enough, I suppose. Freestyle MMA, as we've mentioned, a lot of great talent coming out of there. He's a Kiwi who moved here to train, and his mother and brother are coming over to watch the fight, which I'm very happy for him because it's been a hot second since either of them have been at a fight of his. I learned that in my interview with him, which you can watch here or there. Huge prospect. Oh, he's also coming back from sickness. He got sick in Bali. He was going to fight one more time in Bali at the end of last year, and he got bad staph, and he had to go to
Not
hospital.
Bali Belly.
He did not get Bali belly. He got like Bali staph, and so he had to get rushed to hospital. So he's coming back after a stint of illness, and he will be standing across from Liam Gunshot Gusti, who is 1-0 as a pro. He has a hard-fought victory over Jean Alexander. That was a great fight. Both those guys showed a lot of heart in that fight. That was a great fight. I thought that was fight of the night at that show, which I think that was Hex 32. I think. Might have been
It was
33.
indeed.
Oh,
Yeah.
bang.
No, it was 33.
No, I
Oh.
fixed it. I said Hex 33. Bang, locked in. He was 9-4 as an amateur, including fights with guys like Chris Ustajanovsky, Michael Allsop, Ryan Jankowski, Daniel Mercurio. So as an amateur, he's been fighting incredibly high-level dudes. Chris, great pro now. Michael Allsop about to turn pro. Ryan Jankowski also pro. Daniel Mercurio just turned pro. A lot of really good guys. He's had experience fighting as an amateur. Also, he was Kasib was in IMAF. Gusti was in Gamma, and so that's another high-level amateur organization tournament. Very well-rounded. He's got good grappling and striking. He did hone in on his grappling as well as a point there. I talked about this with him. I also did an interview with him about it, about like focusing on wrestling isn't something that happens heaps in Australia. Like you do wrestling for MMA, whereas he competed in just wrestling comps, like amateur Olympic wrestling. So
I mean, Islam will say that Australia doesn't have wrestling.
I bet he will. And so will DC, bro.
Mate, DC, everyone's favorite announcer.
Yeah, exactly. He fought in Australia too. I've got a clip about that I never posted, filmed like 3 years ago. I should probably post it at some point. Liam is training out at Mat Masters with the Trepcas, who we've already spoken about one of them. We'll talk about the next one in a second. Extensive amateur experience. This will be the first fight. You may have heard of Mat Masters recently, not to put a dampener on things, but Jake Sendler, who was an amateur guy fighting out of there, he passed away recently. I talked about that with Gusti as well. That's stuff we all cover in the interview. And that he got tattooed down his arm, "Forever in my corner," for Jake, because
Nice.
Yeah, he was in Jake's corner, and now forever Jake will be in Liam's corner. This is a Liam, as well as he's a Melbourne boy, fighting out of Mat Masters in Melbourne, but also proudly Balinese. So he's proud to be repping that. His parents both from Bali, I believe. Definitely his father, but I think both of his parents are from Bali. We also talked about that in the interview. So he's proudly repping that. This is another one of those fights where, as I kind of said before, there's matchups where, like a Jake Piper, Patrick Hill, where you're like 4-0 versus a 1-0, but when you look at it, I think this is going to be a banger fight. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to this fight. Gusti versus Kasib, along with being a great fight, is for the vacant bantamweight Hex title. Vacant because Colby Thickness last held this title before he vacated to go and join the UFC. Up next is Marwan Rahiki taking on Semakade Kakembo for the vacant Hex featherweight title. A title that has been left vacant after George Mangos, who is Marwan's training partner and teammate, has vacated it to go fight on Dana White's Contender Series to hopefully make the UFC. There's a bit of a theme there. Teammates fighting for belts that their teammates have held before they've moved on to the UFC. But Marwan, he is fighting out of Lions Den. He is like the next guy up. Like, it was George, and while George had the belt, he was like, I'm going to vacate this so Marwan can fight for it so I can go to the UFC. Like, this is like low-key, or it does kind of remind me of like father's plan from the Nurmagomedovs. You will win the title, and then the next man will win the title, and then we will all go on. That's how what it reminds me of. Great striking, heavy style, heavy striking, heavy hands. He puts the pressure on you. He will march forward and walk you down. Made his pro debut last year. He is the Southern Cross Combat Debutant of the Year for 2024. He is currently 4-0 with their all first round KOs. 3 last year, 1 this year. Huge prospect, lots of eyes, lots of hype on this man. To the point where, like, low-key, it would not surprise me if a victory here... Also, he is already signed to fight after this. The opponent hasn't been released yet. They haven't said. I don't know who the opponent is. But he is already signed to fight at a show after this in July, I think.
Same show, Hex, or some another?
He's going up to Queensland to fight on Beatdown.
Ah, yes.
Which would not shock me if maybe that was also for a title as well. But that's something for the future. But it would not surprise me if a big victory here and then a victory on Beatdown in July. It would not shock me if they get him in at the last week of Contenders. Like with victories here. Like, a lot of hype on this guy. He is taking on Semakade Kakembo, who is another guy with a lot of hype, but also it's interesting because Sem's like a young enough dude. I kind of talked to him about this as well in my interview with him. In a weird way, he's like the veteran heading into this, which is funny because Sem's like a young, hungry, upcoming guy as well. So that's funny.
27 with 10 pro fights is I can see why you're calling him a veteran.
Exactly. Have 10 pro fights by 27. That's a very, very, very solid career. But then also 27 is young in the game. But his experience, he's very well-rounded overall, but from what I've seen, at least, he does seem to prefer the grappling. He has a really good grappling style. I think 100% of his finishes are coming by way of submission. He is now repping Combat 1. He used to be at Absolute MMA. He's recently swapped over to Combat 1, training under Sammy Hayward, the head coach, and, alongside guys like Jono McAuliffe, who made his UFC debut earlier this year. Names you would be familiar with. He's 7-3. His last win being a rear naked choke over Josh Trembulo to earn this opportunity. He's previously fought for this belt on short notice against Adala Biata, and he did very well, especially considering it was a short notice bout, but ultimately he did come away with a split decision loss there. And this might be like a little thing, like maybe I'm buying too much into it or whatever, but with him and with Gusti, also I had this vibe from our interviews. I think like self-belief and recognizing like it's my time to go out and win and make the jump to the UFC and put together big victories. I think having that, being able to recognize it, believe in it, and also speak it into the world, I think that can do a lot. Like, I'm a big believer in that. And something about how Sem is talking about the approach in this fight, he's talking about it's my time, it's I now know, like he's speaking it into existence. He's publicly talking about wanting to get on contenders, whether it be the end of this year or next year, but he's obviously gunning for this year. Something about that is so like fascinating to me, and I think it's fascinating to show the mindset of where a fighter is and that kind of level of calmness. Same, not to go back to Gusti, but Gusti also, he talked about it. Gusti talked about how his fighting career has just been him constantly surprising himself and doing things and constantly pushing his limits. And so that's why, like, I'm so interested in the Gusti Kasib fight, because I think they're both so calm about it. And then, yeah, Rahiki's got such a heavy style, and Sem has got this, like, such a, I don't want to use the word zen, but, like, such a calm, collected, and kind of locked in. That's also going to be a banger. This fight's going to be good.
And that leads us to the last fight, the third title fight on this card.
The third title fight, the main event of the
main
evening.
event. One, Nikos Trepca versus the champion, Kieran Joblin.
Yes.
The Carer versus the Stonecutter.
Yes.
What a couple of nicknames there, eh?
I know, right? I'll talk about the Carer for a moment here. Nikos Trepca, older brother of Artemios, who we spoke about earlier. He is 5-4-1. That one being a draw with UFC's Khan Offley, which I thought was interesting. He returned earlier this year against Raf Scott, and he got the win. After some time away, there was a couple years there where he wasn't fighting. So for him to come back, get a victory like that over Raf is a very good fighter in his own right. Has earned him this position against the Stonecutter. Now, could you please tell me a little bit about the Stonecutter?
Boy, has the Stonecutter Kieran been around. So his record is 27-15. He went pro in 2009. How old were you in 2009, Joel?
I was 7.
This man, when you were in primary school, was fighting professional MMA. And I'm saying that because it doesn't say like what's that? That is nearly over 40 fights. I'm pretty sure that his pro record debut on the New Zealand regional scene, it doesn't specify what it was on. But he is kind of, in recent years, he's been fighting a lot overseas. So I can't say he's well known to like new people in the scene in New Zealand, including myself. I only found out who he was this year, and he does fight out of City Kickboxing. So I was quite surprised when I didn't know who he was. But when you look at his record, he's been fighting in Hex a lot, Eternal, XFC. He's had 3 fights on 1. His last fight in New Zealand, in fairness, from what I can tell, was in 2015. And I wasn't even a fan of MMA in 2015, let alone doing what I do now. So this man is a veteran, to say the least. And he's a champ for a reason. Like, he won that last fight by unanimous decision against Justin, as we mentioned earlier. So, and that was this year as well. That was only a few months ago. So he's turned it around in 2 months. March, April, May. Yeah, well, 2 months, and he's defending his title as well. So active fighter, and it's kind of I'm very excited to see this. I'm glad to be supporting him this time. So up against old Nikos Trepca.
Kieran fought on as well. He made an appearance in Relentless that we were talking about earlier, not as a contestant because he was already at CKB and he was already a pro fighter. But at the end of Relentless, some of the guys had to fight either each other or like a hand-picked fight. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Kieran fought Kasib. I think that was Kasib's matchup with Kieran, I think. I don't think it was either that or one of the Mayocchis had to fight Joblin, but I'm like 90% sure it was Kasib. So, yet again, another like, wow, everyone's paths cross constantly.
But I should really put that on my to watch list, watching
it's
Relentless.
Free on YouTube thanks to
Combat TV.
Yes, the great Tony. What's his last name?
I actually don't know.
Tony, Combat TV Tony.
Yeah, Tony from Combat TV I think is his legal name.
That's not even, dude. It's not even from Combat TV. He is Combat TV.
He is Combat TV.
He what a absolute necessity to the regional scene in this whole region, but obviously very specific.
Predominantly in New Zealand.
Yeah, predominantly in New Zealand. Shout out Combat TV. Shout out the streaming service that just came out. If you ever want to go back and watch old kickboxing MMA fights from the guys who we now know in the UFC, sign up to that. He deserves it. He's put the work in. Go subscribe to his streaming service. Very, very cool. So that'll do us for the pro aspect of Hex 35. You can watch that on, I believe it's on Combat Sports Network.
Yes, csn.watch.
Yes, so go to csn.watch if you want to watch the Hex 35. I'm going to be there. No reaction stream for me because I'm going to be there. Paddy, what are you going to be doing?
I will. It's because what time is it going to be on my time? That's the real question.
Oh, late.
Late. So I will, if I'm lucky, be up watching it. I don't even know what I'm doing this weekend. I haven't gotten that far ahead. But I will be watching it back in the morning. For the Kiwi fighters on the card and Kasib. So.
What do you mean, and Kasib? He's Kiwi.
Yeah, but he's fighting out of Australia.
Yeah, but
if you're fighting out of New Zealand, I consider you a Kiwi fighter.
Shout out to Mayocchi.
Yeah, the country western Australian outback, mullet boy.
Yes, but that will lead us on to the road to Hex, where we've just got a couple shout-outs, a couple people maybe you might want to keep your eye on who's doing well at the amateur, or just. If you have a particular connection to anyone, I'm going to use this opportunity to just talk about that. Because I'm a simple guy. If you say hello to me at a show, I'll be like, that was a good guy. I liked him. I'm that easily fucking won over, dude. If you say hello to me backstage at a show, I'm like, I'll remember him.
I think I'm going to be. I can't say I'm not like that, but I'm not as prolific in the scene as you are. From Southern Cross Combat.
Well, I don't know. I've yet to go to, outside of the one show I did go to in New Zealand, which was Hex going over. I need to come over and go to a Shuriken or go to a Stealth and see you in your element.
That I do. Yep, done. Come over. I have a couch that you can sleep on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But you got a couple fighters fighting out in New Zealand. It seems all the fighters who seem to be fighting overseas at the moment do come from city kickboxing. And I start to feel a bit guilty when I cover these people because it seems like I'm showing favoritism to these gyms, and I get it if people it comes across that way to people. I swear I'm just trying to cover, and it is the closest gym to my house. So timing wise, when I am capable of doing projects. It's what lines up. But so a couple people on this card, we have Maynard Peel, who I do know quite well. We're very friendly with each other, and I had a great chat with him that you can watch here. And it was probably my favorite chat I've done. He is a former mountain BMX champ, so he's no.
You were telling me about this guy.
Yeah, he's definitely not. Why am I struggling to think of the words I need to speak right now?
He's no stranger.
No stranger to high-level competition. That is exactly what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
We're on the same
wavelength. We are on the same wavelength. But he has all his fights so far have been very close. His amateur debut was a loss, and then he's won his other fights. Both decisions, he won. His one against Will Mashisha definitely was very, very close, and that was a tough one for me to watch because I interviewed both of them. So, and I like them both. His fight against Ben Mitchell was a bit more convincing. The interesting thing is he shoots a lot. He's, for someone who comes from city kickboxing, he really puts the mix in mixed martial arts. So, but he definitely is a striker at heart. He also lives with Navajo Sterling and Caden Skipper.
I was going to say, there's a photo here on his Instagram of him cornering Navajo in the UFC.
Yeah, he got to be in Navajo's corner for his Tampa fight. So that was
His UFC
A lot
debut.
like what was that? Sorry,
That was Navajo's UFC debut.
it was his UFC debut. So he's kind of already lived the UFC experience, so he kind of knows what's up, and that's what he wants to do with his life now. He wants to become the middleweight champ. He wrote it down on a manifestation card when he was a teenager or in his early 20s. So that's pretty cool. So I really want to see him succeed.
How
So this is what were you going to say, sorry?
beneficial is that? As a guy, like we talked about the power of the mind before, and that type of stuff.
Oh, it's crazy.
He knows, like he can see his housemate is in the UFC. He's like, I just got to do what that guy did, and I can do it. Like, how powerful is that for a young guy, especially at amateurs? What's his amateur record? Did you say it was?
His amateur record was
It's 2-1.
He's still 2-1, so he's still an amateur. I got confused because we were talking about pros for a second.
Yeah. So as a guy who's had 3 amateur MMA fights, he can look at his roommate or his housemate and be like, "That's doable. He did it. I can do it." But sorry, continue. What were you saying about him?
He's just like all around real cool guy. When you talk to him, the self belief is really there, and he makes you believe it. It's really really inspiring. And I took a lot away from our conversation we had together. It's just going back to that manifestation thing. He has achieved, like he wrote down a few things. He's achieved some of those things already. I think some of them might have been BMX champ and stuff like that. So you can definitely find out a lot more about him. Kind of almost everything you need to know about him in the chat I had with him. Maynard PL squared up MMA. You can find that, Google that, and YouTube that, and you'll see the chat there.
It'll be linked. If I can link it on screen, it'll be linked on screen. If not, every interview we mentioned will be in the description down below.
And great. Yeah, what did you want to add about him?
I wanted to add about his opponent, Zach Blythe, also a very, very high-level guy. He's fighting at an Australian elite team here in Melbourne. A guy who I last saw... So I'd never been to a combat jiu-jitsu match before. Have you ever been to a combat jiu-jitsu match?
No, it's one where they allow open hand strikes as well, right?
Yes. I thought... I don't know what I thought, but it's just an MMA fight.
Yeah.
Zach... Last time I saw Zach was after he had a combat jiu-jitsu match against a real, like, jiu-jitsu guy. Like, a guy who you were like, this guy isn't an MMA fighter, he's a jiu-jitsu dude. And Zach just ran in, bowled him over, and just slammed his palm into his head over and over again until he got the TKO. I was appalled. Because I was like, this is like an MMA fight, but somehow it felt more brutal.
That's not the spirit of combat jiu-jitsu.
Exactly. I was like, bro, you just murdered that guy.
Please play the clip right now.
Yeah, if I can find the footage.
MMA guru.
Yeah, dude. But and then I believe after, I don't want to get the food wrong, but I think I walked backstage and I think Zach was crushing. I don't know if it was a Zinger box or if it was something from McDonald's, but
I like this guy. Maynard, sorry, bro. Zach loves this Zinger box.
I don't know if it was a Zinger or if it was something from Macca's. I don't remember. But I remember it was some fast food his brother bought him. He walks out. He has MMA shorts that look like jorts, and he walks out to John Cena's theme.
All right.
So,
this guy sounds pretty cool.
So both these guys sound very cool, and I'm very much looking forward to this matchup.
And once again, another city kickboxing fighter, Daniel Bull. He's a real up and comer. He's 1-0. He's been he's kind of living the full on MMA lifestyle, even though he's amateur. I believe he's training full time, full support behind his parents. I think he might come from a wealthy family, and they're supporting his MMA dream. This is all This is all what I've gotten from a colleague of mine, in just passing conversation, not recently. So I very much could be wrong about the things I'm saying, and I'm sorry, Daniel, if I'm putting out the wrong impression on you. But it's cool to see your family back you behind on a dream, on what most people and most families would be like, you're being silly, get a real job, all that sort of stuff. And to have your family back and fully believe in you and let you chase your dreams, that's real cool. And I'm pretty sure he's quite young as well. I think he's only just in his early 20s. Doesn't quite say here on his Tapology, but It'll be good. It's good to see him also fighting overseas. He is Australian too, so he's actually fighting in the motherland.
And I did not plan this at all, but I also wanted to say something about his opponent, Aaron Marshall, who I promise you I'm not just talking about the opponents of the guys you want to talk about. But Aaron Marshall is a 2-on-1 fighting out of Combat 1 that I mentioned before. When we talked before about Combat 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that Combat 1. This guy's fighting out of there too.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Overall, just a lovely dude. I just like him. He was meant to fight on the last Road to Hex. Unfortunately, his opponent... I think his opponent pulled out. I can't remember if it was like a weight issue. But I'm glad that Aaron's getting another opportunity to step in there. He's got those itchy knuckles. He's been wanting to fight for a while. So I'm glad to see him get to step back in there.
And someone else on the Road to Hex card, we were talking about the Fisher brothers earlier on. So
Yes.
Cage, what a hell of a MMA name. And he's fighting for the belt. And I believe you know a bit about Cage.
Yeah, so Cage is 5-0, younger brother of Jett. Well, I assume younger. Brother of Jett Fisher. A guy who, what I talked about before with Jett, Jett's very a calculated guy. This is all lovingly. I mean this, I promise you. I like Cage a lot. I like both the Fishers. But Jett, a guy who's very calculated, really impressive use of grappling, gets people down and finishes them. Cage is like, I am here to scrap.
Pause.
Cage is a guy who comes to scrap.
Oh my god,
and
you keep making it dirty.
He loves a fight, and he will get into wars, and he is incredibly entertaining to watch, even at his amateurs. The first time I spoke to him was... I can't remember if it was the Jed Dale fight or the Tyrone Arvin fight. I don't remember which one, but whatever fight it was, I think it was the Jed Dale fight. There was a point in the fight where they just both had each other in a clinch and were just like uppercutting each other, and it was like the most insane thing I've ever seen. Max Davidson, he was his last fight. Max, touted by heaps, was and still is. He's still a very high level guy, but I mean, like, Cage was coming up and fighting Max in Queensland. It was like, oh my god, you're fighting Max in Queensland, and he put on a fantastic show. I remember his father Joel talking about it backstage after the fight, where they walked out and being the, not the hometown boy, Cage was getting booed, and then by like the end of the first, everyone was like, oh my god, and like cheering for him. So he's a guy who is incredibly entertaining and just puts on great entertaining fights, and he can't and he can fight too. He's 5-0 for a reason. Like, I don't mean to be like, dude, he's just entertainment. He's also very skilled and does very well. But like, big fan of both of the Fishers, Cage Chaos Fisher, and Jett the Wolverine Fisher.
Wakanda for it, but no, that's something else. And I suppose that brings us to an end, unless there's someone else you want to talk to on the Road to Hex 4?
Yes, there's a few people I wanted to talk about. Just a couple of names in passing. Luke Rosowski, excuse me, not Rosowski. I hit the O too hard. Luke Rosowski is making his amateur debut, fighting out of XFC Carrum Downs. I'm looking forward to that matchup. That matchup seems really good as well against, oh my god, I'm so sorry. Riyad Basal. I definitely butchered that, and I cannot apologize to him enough. But I think that will be a really interesting matchup. I think really good. I like seeing two guys make their amateur debut against each other is always very interesting. I like seeing that. Along with that, a teammate of Luke, and we'll close those, Liam Emil. It's cool. I feel like you don't get to see middleweights too often, and now in this we're talking about two middleweights. That's at least something I've noticed. I think it's maybe specifically like a Victorian thing. Like, I feel like there's maybe not a middleweights in Victoria. But like, the Hex middleweight title has laid vacant ever since Kevin Jousset went to the UFC. Middleweight isn't something, at least in Victoria, where there's heaps of guys, so it's cool seeing another middleweight show up at Ammy's. So I'm looking forward to both Luke and Liam's debuts. I had two childhood friends that were brothers called Luke and Liam. And so the fact that these two guys are from the same gym and have the name Luke and Liam, I found that funny. Yet again, another guy whose name I'm going to butcher, and I apologize because I do like him. Harry Chiri.
It's Harry Adams.
No, it's not. It's absolutely not Harry Adams.
There is a Harry Adams fighting on the road to Hex.
I don't know Harry Adams. Harry Chirisafis. I'm so sorry, Harry. Next time I see Harry, he's gonna blast me. His fight, he's a Frankston boy. He's fighting from down my way. Adrenaline MMA, which has now been rebranded to, I believe it's Integrate MMA or Integrated MMA. But it's cool to see him get a chance to step back in there. I know it's been something he's been itching to do. 4-1, his last fight being against Brodie Mayocchi in 2022. So he's had a little bit of time outside of the cage. But he's always been training. He's been doing grappling comps. I think the last time I saw him, I bumped into him at a grappling... Oh, not the last time I saw him, but 2 times before that, I think I bumped into him at his grappling comp. So I'm looking forward to seeing Harry step back in there. Harry, I'm so sorry I butchered your last name. When I see him, he'll be like, this is how you pronounce it. And I'll be like, I am sorry. I'll never make the mistake again. And finally, for me, last guy I wanted to touch on, Ryan Breach. Also a guy I've been told to keep an eye on. A lot of hype. He's also out of AET. He has an amateur kickboxing title. He's an insane grappler, very well-rounded guy. I believe he's got brothers as well. They're also very good. But Ryan Breach is a guy I'm definitely keeping an eye on this card because he's a prospect I've been told to keep my eyes peeled for.
I suppose that brings us to the end of our Hex 35 and Road to Hex 4 Across the Ditch breakdown.
Yes. Thank you for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. The next one will be on Shuriken, I believe. That's in what, 2 weeks?
Yes, we'll record that next week. Shuriken Fight Series 21. I mean, we can record it this week, but we typically do it week of, don't we?
Yeah, we'll record it next week. I didn't know if Shuriken was in next week or the week after.
Yes, it's June 7th.
Bang.
So it is...
Calendar.
Yeah.
What will your pick be for Fight of the Night?
For Hex 35, gosh,
Hex 35.
I reckon it is going to be quite possibly Artemios Trepca versus Brodie Mayocchi. I think having those two finishers undefeated go to each other, that's going to be an absolute cracker.
I think that is an excellent shout. I would be tossing and turning between Liam Gusti versus Kasib Murdoch and Jake Piper versus Patrick Hill. I'll say Liam Gusti versus Kasib Murdoch in my official Fight of the Night prediction. But Jake Piper versus Patrick Hill will also be a very good fight, I like to think.
Mm-hmm. And Patrick Hill is a great name. Please, yeah, Joel and I love doing this stuff, so please, if you could follow us on Instagram, leave a like and comment on our videos, particularly this video. Subscribe on YouTube. It really goes a long way to trying to create a bit of revenue coming in so we can support making these videos, make our quality better, all the things that come along with growth in this industry.
Make t-shirts. Yeah,
Joel keeps getting shitty that I don't wear his merch that he doesn't have.
Exactly. You should be making.
You can't get shitty at me for something you don't have.
Well, you should be making fan-made t-shirts.
Oh,
okay.
I can't even afford to make more of my own hats.
Yeah, because you keep giving them out. They're so nice.
Yeah.
It's such a quality hat. I love it.
It is. And even the fighters I've given them to have, I've seen them wearing them of their own accord outside of things with me. So that's kind of like the coolest thing I find is when the person likes the hat so much that they do wear it on their own.
You can't buy any hats, but maybe one day you will be able to.
You will be able to. I'm going to do a run soon. Excellent.
The next time you will see us talking to each other that isn't at a show will be in a week for Stealth Fight League, where
Shuriken Fight Series. Yes! He did it!
No!
He did it!
Yeah! It's Jova.
It's Jova.
Which you'll have to take the lead on that one because I'm not familiar with anyone. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting.
You'll have to let me know all about it.
And I will.
That's next time on Across the Ditch.